Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevin-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today's topic is going to be about common mistakes first-time practice owners make. I'm not here to be a Debbie Downer, and I definitely don't want to point fingers, and my goal is not to categorize all new practice owners into the same grouping or mindset. But I have seen some of these things I'm going to mention over and over again. And if I can put an awareness out there to help providers or people who are starting up their own practice to be aware of some things and maybe be more serious in considering certain aspects of running a practice and staffing a practice, I would make myself feel a lot better. So that's where I'm coming from today. A lot of people, I believe, underestimate the cost of starting a practice and also the operational costs. And it's very difficult to create a pro forma or a budget if you've never had to be directly involved in the paying of bills for a practice, the hiring of staff and knowing salaries, and also looking at the finances when it comes to a practice's revenue as reliant upon patients paying their bills and the insurances paying their bills. A lot of the money you make is going to be 100% dependent on your contracts that you get with your insurance companies. And depending on your specialty, your location, some of those contracts for initial new practices can be a little lower than if you were well established. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the reality of the situation, right? And so if you're throwing numbers out there and you think that you're building your budget and your pro forma on secure numbers, but you've never really had to do the deep dive, you've never seen the deep financials in an established practice similar to yours, then it's really hard to do an accurate gauging of that. I have seen people do a fair analysis or pro forma based on like a Medicare reimbursement situation, and I think that is a good idea only because Medicare is usually one of the lower paying insurances in a practice, obviously depending on your patient volume, your patient mix, and also your specialty. But usually most things are based off of a Medicare reimbursement, okay? So I think that's fair. But if you're going to be accepting Medicaid, a lot of times that reimbursement is even lower than Medicare. And if you have a high volume of Medicaid insured patients, that could definitely skew. Or you could get a really good reimbursement contract from Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare, and you have a high volume of those, and it could be higher, which would be a good situation, right? So that's one of the things, is really making sure that your budget, your pro forma is based off a very realistic reimbursement financial forecasting. The second thing is hiring staff for the positions that you need that have experience. Now, a lot of people kind of skimp in the area of the front desk, if you will, and they will hire staff who maybe don't have a ton of experience because they don't have to pay them as much, but that could bite you and probably will in the long run. You need people at your front desk, where the revenue cycle starts, by the way, that have a strong understanding of the revenue cycle, of the patient registration and checking in process, of the financial responsibilities of working the front desk, of understanding insurances, especially for your specialty, and how that plays a role, and that they're comfortable having conversations with patients about finances, collecting co-pays, balances on accounts. A lot of people don't think about that. They go, oh, front desk, we want someone who looks friendly, which I don't disagree. You want someone who is hopefully willing to take less than you really want to pay to help with some budgeting, right? But Again, be proactive, not reactive, and finding at least the majority of staff to work your front office who have experience, have the knowledge, and can prove to you that they would be a solid benefit to your practice is really important. I can't tell you how many times people hire the friendly face or someone who makes them feel warm but doesn't have any experience, and it ends up being a really bad situation. So you want to hire people who know how to run the front desk, have experience running the front desk, and they might cost a little bit more, but it's definitely worth it. The other position I feel a lot of people either don't hire for immediately or they're not willing to put the money into is the manager. A lot of new owners think that they're going to manage the practice, and there's a whole nother video I could do about that on why it's not a good idea. And I know the intentions are usually genuine, or they have their spouse do it, which is another bad idea. And I think I've done a whole video about that already. But hiring somebody who knows how to manage a practice, the operations, they have a jack of all trades type knowledge and experience is super important. And you're gonna pay for this, but it's going to help you. You are a provider, you're also probably the owner or co-owner, and you need to be focusing on patient care. That is your strength, that is your superhero ability. And a manager's strength and superhero responsibility is to make sure that your practice runs well with the staff, the operations, workflows, inventory, payroll, everything that goes into it, and that they're good communicators with you so that you're in the loop, you're aware of what's going on, you can work with them closely, but they take on the responsibility, they take on the stress to allow you to, again, give that good patient care. Also, you're a provider. You most likely are never been a manager in healthcare, and you might think because you're a provider, you know the information and you can do it, and maybe you can, but you might not do it well. And also, putting yourself in that position could also affect some of your relationships with your staff. It could affect some of your relationships with the other providers. And trust me when I say you need a strong manager who can take on the responsibilities, that has the knowledge, has the experience to be able to lead you in a very strong way and keep you from having to focus on other things other than patients majority of the time. I'm not saying you should rely on the manager to do everything and you should step back and just not be involved. I'm not saying that at all. You definitely need to be, but you should let the manager do what managers do. The last position a lot of people underestimate is a coder. I hear all the time, well, my specialty is very simple. I only bill out a few codes. It's not that hard. And maybe it's not, but there are so many changes going on in healthcare all the time with requirements of CPT codes, modifiers, the association of CPT codes with diagnosis codes. There might be diagnosis codes that you can't list first. It has to be a second or third or it won't be covered. There's so many nuances that you don't know because you're a provider and not a biller coder that you should be relying on the specialist to help you in this area. You can find a biller coder, most likely, that does have experience in your specialty, which is what I would recommend if you're small and you don't want to hire a separate biller and coder. But even if you're hiring a third-party billing company, if they tell you they don't do coding and that you're relying as a provider or you have to rely on your providers to do the coding, you should find someone who has coding experience. They're certified in your specialty or certified and have experience in your specialty, and that they can scrub these things before claims are created, and they can help work the denied claims. They can wear other hats. Maybe they help work at the front desk part-time, maybe they do something else, but you need to find somebody who can help you with that, because a lot of times without this role, you're leaving money on the table or you're delaying payments coming into your practice because things are not going out clean. Claims are not going out clean. You're having to react instead of be proactive, and it's not good for anybody, okay? So those are the three things that people really overlook. And I understand When you're opening a practice, you have a tight budget, your overheads you don't want very high, but sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And these are the 3 places that really need to be focused on in hiring strong people. The other thing a lot of people do when they are opening a practice is they don't look at all of the supplies that they're going to need thoroughly. They think that they need to have everything in there at once, and sometimes you do, depending on your specialty, and you get this huge bill for the medical supplies that you need to have and office supplies. But sometimes, depending on your specialty or your situation, you might be able to ease into buying some things. You might not need everything at once. Like if it's the end of flu season and you're just opening your practice, why do you need to order flu vaccines, right? Wait till next season. Let your patients go elsewhere this season so you don't have that extra cost that's unnecessary, because you might not get through all of the ones you order because you don't know how many to order. You might way over order, right? And that's a cost that isn't necessary at the time. So if you can look at stuff like that and go, do I really need this right now? Or can I refer a patient elsewhere, like a pharmacy or something like that? Then do it. And I'm not saying this is very common, but it can happen. Or maybe you don't need an x-ray machine right away in your practice, but you would like one at some point. Budget for that for next year, and then in the meantime, partner with some local imaging companies and just send patients to get their imaging done there and the report sent to you. These are places that are very realistic to watch your costs and your expenditures in the first year or 2 of opening a practice, so that you can spend money in other places where it would be more beneficial, such as in your staffing. The other thing is all of the bells and whistles of technology. Yes, everybody wants to have all of the latest and greatest gadgets and tools, but is it really necessary at the time? Or is it something you can budget for and add on later? I know everybody likes to have and look like they're on the, brink of technology, of, making things all impressive for patients, but is it really necessary? Because to be honest with you, most patients probably won't even pay attention to it until you have it and they're used to a different way. But if you are just starting off a certain way and it's the way it's done, they're not going to think anything different. Do you really need that point of care test machine that costs so much, or can you just order the old school point of care tests with the swabs and the drops and you put it in there? I mean, it definitely depends obviously on your specialty and your expectations for your patients, but if you can get the same results in the same amount of time with something different that might cost less for just a short period until you can budget some money in for the bigger thing with fancy and bells and everything like that, then do it. Don't overcommit, right? Overcommitting is never a good thing. You want to stay realistic. You're not there to make an impression on the bells and whistles and fancy things for patients. They just want to see a clean office with friendly staff, a competent provider who listens to them, and to be treated very well, that they get the top-notch patient care, and that they start feeling better soon. Like, those are the important aspects. And if you can provide and deliver on all of those, you'll be sitting really well, and then you can budget for all the fancier things, the more bigger things at a later date. It's going to be really good for you. I just hate seeing providers stretch themselves too thin financially, also work-wise, when you're trying to do management, and you're trying to do billing, and you're trying to be a provider, and you stretch yourself too thin in responsibilities as well. It's not good for patients, it's not good for staff, it's not good for you, and it's just not good all the way around. So think of these things. I'm sure more things will pop into my mind after I'm thinking about this when I'm done recording, but these are the ones that really hit home to me because I see it over and over again, where if they just would have made this change, I say to myself, or they just wouldn't have done this, or they just would have hired this person, it would have made all the difference. And I hate having that Monday morning quarterback feeling. Sorry for the sports reference, big sports fan, but it's true. If you want to add to this, if it's something in your experience that you have noticed as a provider owner yourself that you wish you would have done differently, or a manager who has witnessed this themselves, please leave that in the comments below and share with your colleagues of other things to consider. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share with all of your colleagues whom this will help. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.